Okay, so bear with me. This is only the second time I've ever done a screencast. Okay, so here's my slideshow. So problem-based and project-based teaching. I'm trying to come at it from a teaching for artistic behavior point of view. So, I forgot to reference that. I'll make sure I do that here in a little bit. So TAB is basically a choice-based art education that kind of gives kids sort of a real studio-like situation, environment, kind of like art school, which I am familiar with. And they have to choose the best medium or art material that they want to use to get whatever idea across that they need to get across based on their ideas, interests, whatever it is. What I like about TAB is it's really good for differentiating, because I don't know how many times I've heard kids say, I'm not good at drawing, I'm not good at clay, I'm not good at whatever it is. Well, this gives them the opportunity to be comfortable and do the sort of art process that they feel that they're good at, and then maybe once that they get good at that, then they might try something else or be open to experimenting because of the way that this classroom is set up. The similarities between both project and problem-based learning is that they both are trying to engage students with real-world tasks. So I'm trying to get the kids to be in a studio-like situation, which is very real-world if you're going to be an artist. And if you're not going to be an artist, it's still very real-world because of the types of thinking that happen and the choices that you make when you are creating a piece of art in this kind of a situation. Students are given open-ended projects or problems, and there's more than one answer. They basically are given the question, and they come up with the way that they answer it. Another similarity is they're student-centered, obviously, because they're the one choosing. I struggle with the cooperative group part. I think that it is important to brainstorm and come up with ideas together, because at the age that my kids are in elementary, K through 5, they don't know how to come up with ideas yet, and they tend to copy me when I show them some kind of a project. And so I think it's important to kind of talk through things. So maybe part of what they will be doing in this type of situation is at least discussing and talking about their ideas out loud in a brainstorming kind of way. Then they could either branch out on their own or do a project together. Oh my gosh, my son is coming up here right now. There has to be some kind of performance-based assessment. And then the beginning of the project, as far as presentation, for me as the teacher, is just to sort of start them on the path that gets them to the choices that they get to. The differences between the project-based and the problem-based, from what I can tell, because I've read I don't know how many articles, and sometimes I feel like they switch back and forth and everybody's confused about what project versus problem is that in project-based, the students define the purpose for creating the end product. So I feel like project-based is more open-ended than problem-based. In problem-based, I would present them with a problem that they then have to solve, versus the project where they kind of come up with whatever the problem is based on some kind of question that I give them. I don't know if that made sense, but this is my understanding. Also, in project-based, there's an end product. There's a painting, there's a sculpture, there's a collaborative project, versus problem-based, which may just be the thought process, the thumbnails, the ideas, what they came up with, but not necessarily a final piece of artwork. My basic idea for the student outcome is based on our curriculum blueprints that we've created for our entire elementary school. It's kind of our basic, what do they call it? It's not our mission statement. It's our, I forget what we call it. It's not a benchmark. I can't think of it. I can't think of what it's called. But, okay, so this is like the basic overall overreaching understanding. I don't remember the word we use for it, but students will be able to independently use their learning to make personal connections to the real world through understanding, appreciation, and creation of visual art. I tell the kids all the time when they say to me, I can't draw, and I say to them, it's okay. You can learn to draw, and if you don't learn to draw, at least you can appreciate what it takes to learn to draw. So my goal for my elementary school kids is to get them to appreciate art and art learning and the process. How I would set this up before I get into how I would break down each kind of project is based on that tab, Teaching for Artistic Behavior. My plan is to create sort of art stations, and everything I've read that says that you should introduce each station at a time. So maybe I would start like 2 stations, a painting station and a drawing station. And the painting station and the drawing station both have like vocabulary, some examples of how I have used painting for their grade level in the past, student examples, my examples, maybe some references from artists, just kind of like a whole little crate of things that they can use to sort of inspire them to make art for those 2 stations. So with that would be directions for finding and putting away the materials. I, at the elementary level, have to mention directions on how to find and put away materials every day in every class, every year for the entire 6 years that I know all of these kids. But hopefully when they leave and go to middle school, they will have a better appreciation for how to do all that stuff and know what good cleanup looks like. So after the kids master those few stations, then I could keep adding a station at a time and a station at a time. So this is sort of like the basic groundwork that I would set up before I would even start the problem base or the project base. Is just give them some time to experiment and learn how to do each one of these activities. I mean, learn how to work at a painting station, learn how to work at a printmaking station, learn how to, work at a clay station before you even let them get to the part where they're actually making a project. So that might take, 4 to 6 weeks, a full quarter, just to get through some of the basics of all the designs. But, again, everything that I've read says that setup is the most important, because once they know how to do all that, then they're off. You know what I mean? They're off and running. So like what this says is, experimentation and play. So that's like the first quarter, I guess. And then we start getting into like serious content where they're actually using those stations to, by choice, create pieces of art. There is a learning curve. I know at Olentangy where I work, and with some of the other art teachers that I work with who have been working for 25 years, is they have these beautiful projects that they create every single year. And if the second graders don't make clay turtles every year, their parents freak out and don't understand why their 5th grader has a clay turtle, but their 2nd grader does not have one, because they save all their artwork and they hang it on the walls and they want to have all these similar examples. So the learning curve is not necessarily for me, although it is a little bit, but a lot of it is with the parents and letting them know that sometimes maybe their kids won't be bringing home something that they can hang on the wall, and maybe won't be bringing home something that they can sit on the shelf, but that it doesn't mean that what they're learning is not valuable. Sorry, that was my dryer. Oh my gosh, this is online learning, right? So the other biggest thing that I've read about this style of learning is just teaching kids how to manage their own time, and I struggle with that every day. I try to come up with all kinds of like different timers, different visual cues, different voice cues, all kinds of ways to teach kids how to manage their time. But I think, at elementary, it just is what it is. And I just have to start slow, and hopefully by 5th grade, they're getting better and better at it. So problem-based teaching and action based on TAB, and project-based teaching and action based on TAB, they're so similar. Like, it's hard to even discuss how different they are. So my next slides are going to look super similar, but I'll show you the difference. So each type of learning, problem and project-based, they have a question that drives the learning. So for the problem-based is the kids have a problem that they have to solve. So I took a standard, I took a standard from my 5th grade state standards that talks about addressing a social issue with their art. I have not ventured here. This is why I kind of chose it, because I feel like it's something that we miss a little bit when it comes to the art standards. It's a tough thing to go through. Social issues are something right now, just to put my little perspective on it. But I'm not sure I am completely ready to deal with the issues that will actually come up, but I'm open to it for sure. So this would be the problem. I can address the social issue, a social issue, through my art. So the creative process is going to be similar in both types of learning. So I'm going to use tab choice-based art stations. I'm going to include a technology station. Another music teacher and I work with two. One's the music teacher in my building, one's a traveling art teacher. And we just got grant money to buy some iPads to add some technology to our classroom, because we're kind of left behind as far as technology goes. I have one desktop, I have one laptop, that's it, and a smart board, which I feel like is completely obsolete as far as technology is concerned. So we've got these iPads that we're going to try to at first set up as a station, and then ultimately share and create a collaborative project where the kids create an art project and then it transfers from art to music. This is the idea, but we'll see. So in this choice-based art station type of learning, including the technology, I give the kids the let's go back. I give the kids the driving question, or the essential question, or whatever it is, the outcome that I'm trying to have them get to, and then they just start. We already have that basic quarter long. I taught you about drawing stations. I taught you about painting stations. I taught you about the technology stations. I taught you all of it. Here's your question. How are you then going to solve that question? And things are going to come up. There's going to be questions. I'm going to have to give mini lessons on specific parts of drawing or specific parts of painting, or maybe they want to use watercolor instead of tempera paint. And so we'll do these mini lessons along the way, which a lot of people say, well, why didn't you do that when you started? And, I sort of am one of the group that says, if you show them before, there's no meaning to it. If you show them when they're trying to work on it, well, then they're going to take it in better because they need it to solve the problem that they're working on. And so they'll retain it better, and they'll understand it better, and they'll learn it better if they are looking to use that kind of technique for their actual artwork. So there could be art materials and techniques training. I might mention specific artists, how they were inspired to make their art, their influences. I think that's hugely important to show kids where ideas come from for art. In the meantime, there's formative assessment. I'm going to be talking to them about their social issue, giving them feedback. like helping them come up with ways to really show what they're thinking. Is their idea focused? Are they all over the place? And I'm just going to be guiding them through that. I'm like they say, the facilitator, and I'm not in charge anymore. I'm just helping them through the learning that they are doing on their own. Earlier I mentioned that there should be some collaboration, and my experience with that is, before I decided to become a teacher, I worked in advertising, and one of the best ways that we got ideas for clients was to sit around together, 6, 7, 8 people, and come up with ideas that had a problem. I mean, I have seen this kind of teaching in the real world. So this is a real world situation. I mean, this is how it works in advertising. I mean, the client says, we need a bus card that, we had Coda as one of our clients. We need people to ride the trolley. And so the 7 or 8 of us would sit around and come up with ways to get people to ride the trolley. And it's hard to do on your own. It's better when you can have a group of minds together working as one and you come up with ideas. So I think it's really important when you're researching, discussing, writing, outlining, coming up with thumbnails, and planning that there is a group dynamic for part of it. And maybe some of these kids will go off and do something together, and maybe they'll be individuals. Where I think that's where differentiation is really nice, is there are kids who really do want to be solo, and that's okay. And what I like about this kind of learning is that it's an option. It's not like everybody has to work by themselves. For years I've been like, Ava, Sophia, don't let Sophia help you because then you're not learning. Well, that's sort of like backward thinking to me. And sometimes when I say it, I think, I'm just struggling with a kid not doing anything and having everyone do all of the parts of their art. So but put in this context, I think that some of that would disappear. So then you get to the actual creation part of the artwork, and that's choice. That's all those stations. That's all the parts and the pieces and the experimentation and the questioning and me helping and little mini lessons and all that like action that happens. For the problem-based, actually for both, I'm going to really try to start using some kind of digital portfolio once I can get some more technology in my classroom. But I'd really start to like to use a digital portfolio for kids to upload their work. For the project-based, they could put up their finished piece of work. And then they could self-assess or reflect, think, pair, share. There's some kind of rubric involved where they can like go back and figure out if they solved a social problem or not. But it'd be nice to see that thinking through there. And then it gives the kids an opportunity to discuss and give feedback, not just me, but, kind of everybody talking about the whole thing at once. That's what I like about this too, is because they collaborated in the beginning, they can then collaborate at the end and figure out if they solved the problem the way they had planned to do it, and I'm not telling them what is right or wrong. They are, they're kind of coming up with, not even right or wrong. Sorry, that was problem-based. Same, it's so crazy. Like, it's so back and forth. So for project-based, problem-based, there's actually something to solve. Okay? And maybe there's something at the end that they upload, but maybe it's just their thinking. Let me go back. So maybe it's just, like I say here, it's the presentation of the learning or the presentation of the final piece of artwork. So maybe what they're uploading to their digital portfolio is their thumbnails, some kind of outline of their thinking, I don't know, their discussions while they were going through the process. Maybe it's just me walking around. Maybe it's a paper they fill out where they're talking about the difficulties that they're having and the positive things that they're having. So maybe it's not a final project. Maybe it's just their idea on how they would solve the social issue visually. as an artist. Maybe they can't do it because I don't have the resources in my class, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that they didn't solve the problem. It just means that we had the inability to finish it completely because of where we are and who we are and where we go to school. So for the project-based teaching, it's more open. Okay, so for example, instead of saying, I can, make a piece of artwork about a social issue. Now it's just, what inspires you to make my art? It's like an open question, so that while they're working, they're thinking about this question. And it's probably going to change throughout the process. How do you get ideas for your artwork? Okay, so again, it's very similar. I'm going to do the stations, including the technology. You've got the mini lessons, so maybe I'm talking about specific artists. What inspires them? What influenced them? And then the kids can take that and say to themselves, well, what's inspiring me? Is anything that is inspiring those artists inspiring me in any way? I'm also giving them the art materials and techniques, so they might be inspired just by a technique, and then they'll see an artist. They'll say to me, I'd really like to use watercolor. Are there any other watercolor artists out there? And I would then make a mini lesson about watercolor artists, I don't know. It just seems like so much more natural. Like when kids come up to me and ask me questions, I'm like, you know what? Let's look it up. And I do that in my class now, but so many of the classes it's like we're always creating a project at the end. So it's sort of like the same formula. I am giving them some kind of a presentation, and I've gotten better. It includes video, it includes, visuals. I'm trying to give them like pictures of the actual artists in their art studios. So it's not just like a painting that has no context. It's like it shows the size. It shows, the artist working. I've got video of Picasso, stuff like that. So I think I'm doing a good job as far as those presentations. But it's like we always have a project at the end. And I've always struggled with it because kids will say to me, can I use Sharpie on this? And I'll say, no, we're using oil pastel. But really, I should say, yes, use Sharpie. Figure out how to make this work with Sharpie. And I would love to do that. And I think that I'm headed in this direction. So for project base, it's just more open. It's more of an experimental type thing versus the problem base where they have to solve a certain question. So for the formative assessment, I'm walking around, I'm talking to them about what's inspiring them, so they're starting to make connections between the mini lessons where I've talked about artists and their inspiration and where they're getting their inspiration, and maybe this takes like 3 separate classes. I really don't know yet, like how long this would take. Most of my art projects take anywhere, like younger grades, kindergarten, first grade, 2 classes. As you get to the upper grades, sometimes they take 6 classes. Sometimes I only get 1 project done per quarter. So it just kind of depends on, where this goes. And I think at the early ages, it would be more project-based because they're learning the basics. We even have this program, first grade gets regular art class. They also get what's called art enrichment, which is just, it's not graded. It's just how to use a paintbrush, how do you use a marker, and it's all just how do you use materials. And it's like a really nice age level to give them extra information about specific tools. So then when they get to second grade and third grade, they've already had like this really in-depth instruction on how to use tools. So you don't have to do it every single year. So I feel like the setup could be the same for this. You start with a station or 2, or maybe like 1 project per quarter is station related and the rest are project related, so that they get the basics of the art elements and the art principles. And then the older they get, the more it's choice based, the more it's open. So as far as project based, then, I'm just checking in to see if they're on the path that they're supposed to get on. Again, that collaboration is important. It's very similar. Collaboration is important. And then the creation part, I don't know. I think I got this backwards. I'm getting so confused. Anyway, so, depending on which style we're using, you either have the end project. That's what the difference is in the two of these. You either have an end project, or maybe there's not an end project. I feel like that's the basic difference in what project versus problem is, as far as I can tell. All involve some kind of self-reflection, some kind of self-assessment, some kind of how could I change my art and make it better, which is an art standard that I have in pretty much every grade level through K through 5. So there is this like aspect of the self-assessment that is super important in getting kids to understand. Like, one of my big things in kindergarten and first grade is turn your oops into art, because they have such a hard time figuring out what to do when they make a mistake. But when I hammer in that turn your oops into art, well, then they're thinking more about, well, what could I do with this? Instead of throwing it away, what could I do with this? So it really helps me in those early years start into that sort of self-reflection idea. And both of those are super important. I've tried rubrics. The kids kind of look at them and they read them, and then, unless they're attached to the end of their nose, they forget about them or they don't check them. So I feel like both styles of this kind of teaching would allow me to give better feedback, because it'd be more in the moment and it would be less about a rubric. I mean, I could do a rubric. It's just, I don't know, rubrics are too rigid for me in art. I just have a really hard time with that. And actually grading is really hard for me in art, because it's kindergarten art, for God's sakes. Why do I have to give them a grade? I just want them to try stuff and appreciate it. So I feel like both of these kinds of learning would allow me to quote unquote grade their thinking more than the actual project. And I think that's more important than what the actual end product looks like. And I'm starting to think this way a lot more. I'm giving kids a lot more leeway since I've started this master's degree in this past year than I would have before, because just based on, how everybody else is teaching. And I think that's going to be really good for my art department, because we meet together regularly and I can advocate for a little bit more of this style of teaching. So I'm not sure I was clear about problem-based and project-based teaching. I think I got it. My basic understanding is that problem-based has a problem that needs to be solved. I think I did get them backwards, actually, now in my PowerPoint, now that I'm looking at it. Problem-based has a problem that needs to be solved. It can be solved in all kinds of different ways. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know. It's hilarious, right? Let me look again. I thought I had it. Hilarious. They're just so similar. Like, everything I read, it's just really hard to get through the details. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. But, so students define the purpose for creating an end product and project-based. So I feel like that's what I do now. So there is a project at the end. Problem-based presents a problem to solve, but maybe it doesn't have the final piece of art. I don't know. I sort of feel like in art class that maybe there needs to be some kind of product, even if it's not finished. At least it's the ideas and the thoughts and I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm thinking through it. You can hear me thinking through it. It's something, isn't it? Well, this is what I have so far, and I saw that we're going to be discussing many more different kinds of thinking, so I'm interested to see what we're doing here, and hopefully I just got through all that and I didn't misrecord. Okay, I don't know what to do. I feel like it stopped recording. Hold on. Oh no, I feel like I just did. Oh. No. I don't want to lose my recording. Give me a second. How do I stop it? I don't know how to stop it. God love you. How do I stop it? I really don't know how to stop it. I'm not sure I started it. Okay. I thought I did it. Okay. Told me to go. Hold on, Mama. Okay, I got that. Where am I? No, it's okay. I'm trying to figure out how to stop this thing, if I can even stop it. I'm not sure that I even did what I did. Okay, hold on.